Hello, my name is Roz White, and for LGBT History Month Online 2021, I am reading extracts from my first novel, The Sisterhood. This time we follow Jo. The corridor seemed to stretch on forever. Mile after mile of plain magnolia wall, topped by acre upon acre of vaguely grey speckled tiles, punctuated by the harsh, unforgiving light of fluorescent tubes. Underfoot, Jo waded through fields of plain, magenta-hued carpet, its pile tight and short, making it feel more like a soft concrete than anything even vaguely carpety. She must be hating it in here, Jo thought to herself, but then quickly stifled the idea, before the tears began again. Just a few steps ahead, the nurse. Oh, no, wait. They didn't call them nurses here, did they? The girl, it was impossible to think of her as a woman. She was so young. Was a care assistant. She had it emblazoned across the breast of her clean white tunic as if tattooed there to remind her of her status. Jo idly wondered if there was any reason for employing care assistants rather than nurses, beyond the cynically obvious one of their costing less that way. Whatever she was, she walked without a sound, as if not to intrude on Jo's thoughts at all. They came to a door, one of many dotted along the endless wall, a plain wooden slab in a sea of magnolia. Well, not quite utterly plain. There was a vertical sliver of glass so thin that it was impossible to actually see anything through it. Was it supposed to count as some sort of window? The tears welled up behind her eyes as soon as she caught sight of Carol through that window. Jo found herself breathing rapidly and blinking hard to hold them back. Not now, not now. It felt like forever until she regained some measure of control, but the figure already in the room seemed not to have moved, frozen in place as if merely some sort of diorama, a tableau in a museum of something. If only, Jo found herself thinking amid the chaotic jumble of thoughts and emotions racing through her mind. That way it wouldn't be real, and I could just walk away. Carol. Her beloved Carol, the one and only Carol, the single most important person in her life ever, the one for whom she would once have done anything but ultimately fell short of that vow. Carol just lay there, unseeing, unknowing, unfeeling. So totally not how she had always been. There were fewer wires, no tubes, very little in the way of machinery around her. Jo turned to the care assistant, a puzzled look on her angular features. Where is... I had expected more. She waved her hands vaguely. Stuff. I'm afraid we don't do that here. The girl's voice was a study in practiced and measured sympathy, coupled with experience of trying to explain the obvious to the distraught and the grieving. You're probably thinking of intensive care, like in the hospital? She twitched her mouth downwards into a sad, understanding frown. I'm afraid your partner is on palliative care now. She's comfortable and she's out of pain, but really now it's only a matter of time. How do you know she's out of pain? Jo's mind raged, but she knew better and was in control sufficiently to keep her thoughts out of her mouth. What if she's not comfortable? What do we do? What do you do then? And how much time? Time until what? But she knew the answer to that one, of course. The girl knocked smartly on the door before pushing the handle. Jo hesitated, but could not explain why, even to herself. But why had she even come here if not to walk through that door? There was a clearing of her throat from the foot of the bed. Jo tore her eyes away from the pallid form of her one-time soulmate and brought them to rest on the source of the sound. The air in the room noticeably chilled. I'll go make tea, the young girl said brightly. Too brightly, Jo thought, but at the same time she envied her the ability to scurry from the room and avoid what had to come next. Slowly, carefully, she took the seat next to the bed, draped her dress down over her knees as she crossed her legs, put a bag on her lap and shook her long-length cardigan so that it fell somewhere between the arm of the chair and its seat. When she judged a suitable time had elapsed, she lifted her eyes back to the thin, pinched face sitting in the corner of the room. So then, Jo began, fixing a brittle smile on her face and trying hard not to show what she really thought of the woman facing her. Perhaps you would like to explain why you only summoned me here once it was too late for me to even say goodbye. The other woman was younger, but not perhaps by so very much. Dark, severely cut hair was already beginning to grey, whilst an outfit of a plain white blouse, thin navy cardigan, and a dark tweedy skirt did nothing to dispel an image of dull, dowdy, premature aging. Privately, Joe reckoned this creature had considerably less style than she did, along with a face that could have soured an onion, maybe even a whole field of onions. Dislike for Joe radiated from almost from every pore as she sat at the foot of the bed and glared. It would have been nice to be told, Joe continued, after what she hoped was a suitably dramatic pause. A pause during which this other woman could have said something, could have contributed to the conversation, might even have volunteered some information. Joe was too much of a realist to ever have expected an apology, however. She knew who this person was, of course, and from that could divine a good guess as to why things had turned out as they had. We are still married, after all, she went on. You can't just ignore me and shut me out, and I can't imagine what part of you would ever think that such a thing could even be justified. There, that ought to be enough to open the floodgates again, Joe thought, whilst at the same time wishing against wish that it hadn't come to this. Not here. Not over this. You were the one who left her. The words were as snappy as the face that spoke them, pinched, lean, unfriendly to the nth degree. You were the one who went away, who left us all behind. Joe laughed sharply. Left you behind? I don't think so. Do try and remember the timings, Brenda. You had already gone long before I came into your mother's life. She raised an eyebrow and leaned forward slightly, glancing to left and right around the room. Where is Duncan, by the way? His ministry has called him away, Brenda replied, with the faintest sniff of disdain. Jo arched her eyebrow further, but declined to comment. Well, she said, turning the conversation back towards the woman in the bed, I don't suppose she's even aware of us any more. Her eyes misted with tears once more. Her hand reached out and gripped the bed frame. Why didn't you even call? Even if you didn't want to speak with me, you could have left a message, or you could have texted. Ah, no, you deny yourselves those on the grounds of your beliefs, don't you? Sorry. I had hoped for some insane reason that you might have relented just a bit and rejoined the modern world. Bit silly to even ask about an email then. Her temper suddenly flared and she turned back towards the foot of the bed. For fuck's sake, girl, you could have bloody well written! The words were like a slap in Brenda's face. Don't presume to speak to me like that, she retorted hotly. She's my mother. She was that long before you came and corrupted her, and then to have done what you did. That was surely cruel, Estelle, to all of us who were at that time still willing to pray for you, support you. I don't seem to remember much in the way of support. All I recall is two grown siblings trying to fill their mother's head with poisonous filth against me. What you did was an affront to God. It's not natural. Had it stopped at the clothes and the other nonsense, we might have still been able to understand, to try and keep it within some sort of bounds. But to then have yourself mutilated in that way. And what does it change? You're still the same person inside. You haven't suddenly grown a whole new soul, become a whole new person. How could you? Such things are not within the power of men. Only God has that power, and you saw fit to challenge his work. None of which goes any way towards explaining why you didn't even try to contact me when you found out your mother was dying. She would not have wanted to see you. She made that clear enough over the years, surely? Evidently clearer to you than to me. Were you in contact then? Brenda's face had recovered a measure of composure. Jo was acutely aware that it also probably concealed a large amount of cunning. Brenda might be a misguided, shallow-minded bigot, and in Jo's limited experience she was all that and more, but she wasn't stupid. No, not by any means. It felt like walking through a minefield, and Jo was already tired. Not regularly, no, but still occasionally. Okay, I sent her birthday and Christmas cards. Let's not to reveal that she never sent any back. I wasn't aware. But anyway, what could you have done? Are you now claiming the power to bring her back as well as the right to destroy your own body and soul? I could have advised on her care, Jo pointed out icily. I should have been consulted. I am still her legal partner, after all. You can't even say the word, can you? I wonder what you would have put on the consent form when they asked what you were in relation to Mum. You see? Somewhere deep inside you, you know that what you've done is wrong, is an abomination and an insult to creation. You've become a freak, a monster, stuck there in the middle, neither man nor woman. Stop it, Brenda. It does no good to trawl through this yet again. I try to respect your view, so why can't you at least make an effort to understand mine? There is no understanding to have. It's so alien, so completely and utterly wrong. Appalling, self-indulgent, inconsiderate. You had no thought for the rest of us, did you? Bloody hell, woman, I was on enough medication that I didn't know who I was half the time. I was on antidepressants. I was in counselling. I was under the care of 3 separate specialists. I was diagnosed with this. It's a medical condition. How can you bring a moral argument to bear against an illness? Brenda's face showed her the answer before the words were even out of her mouth. Modern so-called medicine is as much of a crime before God as you are, even more so since they encouraged you in this delusion. I don't care how many doctors gave in to your tantrums and let you do what you did. It's still wrong. But you can't see that. You never could and you never will. And ultimately, that's why Mum left you. Ah, so now she left me. Yet earlier on, you said it was me that left her. Left you all. Evidently, it can't be both. So which was it? Don't treat me as if I were a child. You sit here and demand access, demand a say in what goes on, and yet you can't even find the courage to call yourself her husband anymore. At least I know what I am to her. She still has her daughter looking after her, even after her partner has abandoned her to chase his own selfish, perverted desires. And now who's treating who badly? You make it sound like a game, like something I did on a whim, like a bloody tattoo. I nearly killed myself before this got sorted out, remember? Brenda grimaced. Just another example of your weak and selfish self-centeredness. Lots of people are diagnosed with depression, or so I'm told, and a good number of them find solace and recovery in the Lord's embrace, whatever form that might take. There aren't so many feel the need to hack themselves to bits and spend the rest of their lives denying who they really are. And glad I am of it. I don't suppose you'll believe a word of it, but I wouldn't wish what I went through on anyone else. If I'd been able to find comfort in prayer and constant praising of the Lord, I'd have done it and been bloody glad of it. But that wasn't what was wrong, Brenda, nor was it you, or your mother, or anyone else in the family, before you get that idea into your head. It was me. It was all me, and I accept that. So your mother and I separated. She didn't feel so strongly about what was going on that she ever felt the need to start divorcing me. We're still married, and no matter what I've done, no matter how much of a monster I might appear in your eyes, that gives me a right to be kept informed, to have a say in what happens to her. Joe turned back to the comatose figure in the bed. And you took away even the chance to say goodbye. And if you want to find out what happens next to Joe, you'll just have to read the book, won't you? Thank you for listening. Goodbye.